Welcome to this explainer. Today, we're looking at a truly unprecedented aviation tragedy, Pacific Southwest Airlines Flight 1771. A commercial airliner literally plummeted from the sky, hitting the ground with such terrifying force that witnesses said it actually looked like a dart breaking the sound barrier. It left an impact scene unlike absolutely anything investigators had ever encountered before.
Okay, so to really understand what happened here, we need to start with the chilling audio that forever changed this flight. Squawk 77, Squawk 77, we've had a gun fired on board the aircraft. That frantic radio call to air traffic control was the very first sign that something deeply sinister was unfolding way up at 22,000 feet.
And tragically, right after that transmission, the aircraft crashed. But when first responders and local sheriffs finally reached this remote cow pasture out in the California hills, they didn't find your typical crash site. 5,000. That number is just staggering. It represents the unimaginable G-forces of the impact. I mean, the site was completely devoid of wings, fuselages, or even aircraft seats. There were no survivors, no intact human remains, just scattered pieces of paper and this overwhelming, strong smell of aviation fuel.
To really put the sheer obliteration of a 30-ton airliner into perspective, let's look at these numbers. The world's absolute best fighter pilots max out at around 9 sustained Gs, right? A human body might just survive a split-second 100 G impact in a crash if they're extremely lucky. But 5,000 Gs? That is a force 50 times stronger than what is survivable. It perfectly explains exactly why hardened steel was ripped to shreds, and why there was basically no recognizable airframe left for investigators to even work with. So, how did we get here? Let's trace this back to what started as a completely routine commuter flight. Flashback to earlier that day at Los Angeles International Airport's Terminal 1. 43 passengers boarded a quiet, British-built commuter jet. Inside the cabin, everything was totally normal. People were ordering scotch, happily chatting about what to buy their kids for Christmas, debating if they could share a new Nintendo. The only mild concern in the whole cockpit was just a continuous light chop of turbulence. It was perfectly, wonderfully routine. And we absolutely have to highlight the high competence of the professionals in the cockpit that day. Captain Greg Lindemood had 14 years with the airline and was a decorated combat veteran. First Officer James Nunn had thousands of logged flight hours himself. Having this massive level of experience up front immediately helped the National Transportation Safety Board, the NTSB, rule out simple pilot error as the primary cause of the crash. Which brings us to the unique convergence of the NTSB and the FBI on the crash site. These two massive federal agencies arrived at that remote cow pasture the very next day, and it created a really fascinating duality in the investigation. Because air traffic control had heard that frantic report of a gunshot, the NTSB had to focus on an objective crash analysis. They were kicking the tin, as they call it, looking strictly for mechanical clues to explain the violent dive, without jumping to any preconceived notions. But at the exact same time, the FBI was treating this hillside as a mass murder scene. They were out there trying to establish a motive, figure out access, and gather physical evidence of a major crime committed on federal property. Now, with practically no airframe left to analyze, finding the black boxes was absolutely critical for both teams. And despite the total catastrophic destruction of the aircraft, searchers miraculously managed to locate the badly mangled, hardened steel of both the cockpit voice recorder and the flight data recorder, buried deep down in the debris field. But what they saw when they got them back to the lab in Washington was pretty shocking. NTSB investigator Dennis Grossi noted that the flight data recorder was crushed. It was bent inward as if someone had grabbed this incredibly hardened steel and just crushed it with their bare hands. Only a tiny 6 to 8 inch fragment of magnetic tape actually remained intact around the recording heads. The entire rest of it was completely destroyed by those 5,000 Gs. That brings us to the chilling audio from the cockpit voice recorder. Over at the NTSB lab, investigators really held their breath for this one. Unbelievably, the audio tape was perfectly intact. On that tape, they heard 28 minutes of total normalcy, which was suddenly shattered by absolute terror and the very distinct sound of 2 gunshots. Now, you might be thinking of movies where a bullet hole causes explosive decompression and brings down the entire plane, but a sudden violent drop in cabin pressure just is not caused by a single bullet hole in a modern commercial jet fuselage. It literally doesn't work that way. The NTSB knew a simple bullet couldn't crash this plane, so whatever those horrifying sounds on the tape were, they had to explain exactly what mechanically forced that deadly, supersonic dive. Let's map out that final minute of the flight because it unfolded with harrowing speed. At 0 seconds, the first gunshot rings out. Just 15 seconds later, a flight attendant throws open the cockpit door. 10 seconds after that, the killer himself speaks. And right at the 65-second mark, investigators heard that horrifying windscreen noise, the sound of the engine over-revving as the plane physically accelerates into its final, fatal dive. The dialogue captured in those few seconds is incredibly sobering to read. You can hear the alarmed flight attendant shout, "There's a problem, Captain." The captain quickly responds, "What's the nature of the problem?" And then a male voice calmly replies, "I'm the problem." And that's immediately followed by another gunshot. This deeply unsettling exchange, along with more gunfire bringing the total to 6 shots, forced the NTSB investigators to face a grim reality. They weren't just analyzing an accident. They were actively listening to a mass murder as it happened. Both pilots were shot, leaving literally no one alive to fly the plane. Next up, let's talk about the shocking discovery of the .44 Magnum. So while the tape in Washington gave investigators the chilling audio of the crime, the FBI back in California desperately needed physical proof. They had to figure out exactly who brought this plane down. And in an unbelievable stroke of luck, agents actually located the torn barrel of a .44 caliber Magnum right in the dead center of the impact zone. Shortly after that, they uncovered the weapon's cylinder, still holding 6 spent cartridges. That matched perfectly with the 6 shots heard on the cockpit tape. Now, for some context here, a .44 Magnum is widely considered the most powerful handgun you can have, and its frame is heavily constructed. The fact that the crash was violent enough to tear its solid barrel completely off really underscores just how devastating that 5,000 G impact actually was. But there's a really morbid forensic clue that came with it. A portion of a finger was actually found wedged firmly right between the trigger and the trigger guard of that shattered weapon. This macabre piece of physical evidence was immediately packaged up and sent straight to the FBI lab at Quantico in Virginia. The goal? To finally identify the 43rd person on board, the killer himself. And all of this brings us to one ultimate, lingering question. How on earth did a passenger manage to smuggle a fully loaded .44 caliber Magnum through security at LAX, one of the busiest airports in the world? It represents a catastrophic failure of aviation security, a literal blind spot that allowed a single gunman to casually board a completely routine commuter flight, execute the crew, and intentionally obliterate 42 innocent lives in the California hills. It's a tragedy that fundamentally reshaped the way we look at safety in the skies. So, knowing what we know now, how do you think this massive security oversight changed the reality of modern travel?
For more crash investigations, subscribe to the channel, like this video and share it. Tell us what to investigate next in the comments. Thank you for watching and stay safe.
Thank you for watching The Flight Decoder. Subscribe for more authentic aviation investigations. Like this video, share it, and leave your thoughts.